Hello everybody, it's Nancy News here, and today we've got a lot of broken updates today. And the first news we'll be talking about today is coming from the country of Saudi Arabia, where we've just got news today that the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has just arrived in Saudi Arabia, where he'll be meeting the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. So we've got news today that US officials and Russian officials are about to meet for the first time since 3 years since the war in Ukraine begun in the capital city of Saudi Arabia, Riyadh. So we've also got news that the Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, has just landed in the capital city of Saudi Arabia for talks with Marco Rubio, and alongside with the Russian foreign minister Sergei Lavrov, the presidential aide for foreign policy of the Russian Federation has also arrived with the Russian foreign minister to talk with Sergei Lavrov and US officials. So the presidential aide for foreign policy noted that earlier in the day, the talks in Riyadh between US and Russian officials are about agreeing how to begin negotiations on Ukraine. He also stressed that the talks will be bilateral. So US and Russian officials are about to meet and talk about a settlement in Ukraine. But it seems that the president of Ukraine is not very happy, because obviously Ukraine will not be participating in the meeting. Zelensky stated that Ukraine knew nothing about the talks in Saudi Arabia and will not recognize them. President Zelensky of Ukraine stated that Ukraine will not participate. Ukraine knew nothing about it. Ukraine considers any talks about Ukraine without Ukraine to be fruitless, and we cannot recognize any things or any agreements about us without us. And we do not recognize such agreements, the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, said. So he's clearly not very happy. But the president of Ukraine is pretty close to where the US and Russian officials will be meeting. President Zelensky is actively in a trip in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. So Zelensky has just arrived in the United Arab Emirates. He said that he will discuss about the release of Ukrainian prisoners there. So the UAE, so the United Arab Emirates, often acts as a mediator of prisoner exchanges between the Russian Federation and Ukraine. So very big news, and along with his meeting, Ukraine has actually secured a comprehensive economic partnership between the United Arab Emirates and Ukraine. So Ukraine and the United Arab Emirates have just signed an agreement on comprehensive economic partnership that allows Ukraine to sell consumer goods to United Arab Emirates and allows the United Arab Emirates to access the Ukrainian market. So very big news. So now let's go into some updates coming from Russia and Ukraine. So we've got news that Russia has saw a 40% surge in terrorism cases in 2024, top investigative body says. So Russian courts handled 429 terrorism-related criminal cases in 2024, and this is a 40% increase from the previous year in 2023, the country's top investigative authority said on Monday. So the investigative committee stated that the organizers of these crimes are usually located abroad, while young people, pensioners, and others fall under their influence. So, Russia has seen a 40% surge in terrorism cases in 2024, and we'll see what happens this year. We've got some news coming from Ukraine today that the elections in Ukraine are apparently scheduled for October the 26th, 2025 this year. So this was stated by the previous president of Ukraine, Poroshenko, which I should add that he's previously just been sanctioned a couple of days ago. So interesting news. So we can expect the Ukrainian elections being held on October the 26th, 2025. And by then, the war in Ukraine should have ended. We've also got news today of a leaked draft deal between the US and Ukraine. So the US is apparently claiming 50% of Ukraine's natural resources revenues for reconstruction aid. So a leaked draft agreement shows that the US is apparently securing 50% of Ukraine's minerals, oil, gas, and infrastructure revenues in exchange for post-war financial support. So the deal centered around the Reconstruction Investment Fund would give the US control over Ukraine's resource licensing and long-term economic influences. So let's just go over the key terms of the agreement. So, the US government commits to a long-term financial investment into Ukraine's stability and reconstruction. Ukraine must allocate 50% of all revenues from resource extraction licenses to the United States, effectively granting Washington a financial stake in Ukraine's economy. The Reconstruction Investment Fund will have an exclusive authority over how Ukraine issues and manages resources license. The US will have a right of the first refusal to purchase any exportable minerals before Ukraine can actually sell them anywhere else. Ukraine must waive a sovereign immunity, meaning the US can legally seize Ukrainian assets if Ukraine fails to meet its financial obligations. So there are the key big statements from this treaty. And President Zelensky actually refused to sign this draft mineral resource agreement with the United States, stating that it does not actually protect Ukraine's interest. So the US seeks 50% of Ukraine's rare minerals and has signaled that it will be open to deploying American troops to guard them if there is a deal with Russia to end the war soon. So the United States is actively now looking at 50% of Ukraine's natural minerals, which, let's be honest, about half of it's been taken by Russia too. So Ukraine will be left with barely anything. And we've also got news today that NATO officials are now criticizing Ukraine for wasting Western arms by relying on Soviet-style tactics. So tensions are rising between NATO and Ukraine, more specifically the UK and Ukraine. So UK defense sources criticize Ukraine's army for misusing Western-donated weapons. The Ukrainian forces are using Soviet-style tactics, wasting expensive NATO equipment. Ukrainian troops are misusing costly NLAW missiles, which are about £20,000 each, so I'm guessing that's about $35,000 treating them like cheap RPGs. This is coming from UK defense sources, and we've got news today that the British sources are stating that the Russian army may now have more javelins than the whole British army. So very interesting news. So the UK is actively talking to Ukraine on trying to maybe less the wasting of NATO weapons and leaving them behind for the Russians. And now the Russian army is stating that just because of this war, Russia now has more Western javelins than the British army. And we've also got some news today that Norway has just joined the International Drone Coalition for Ukraine. The Defence Minister of Norway, Tor Oreshus, has just signed the document on February the 15th, making Norway the 7th country in the coalition alongside with Ukraine. So Norway will be providing much drones to Ukraine in the battlefield in Ukraine. We've also got news that Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer says that he is ready to put British troops on the ground in Ukraine. So this has just came out today. So the British Prime Minister has just announced his readiness to put British troops in the ground of Ukraine, obviously as peacekeepers in Ukraine after the war is done. And we've also got news that Sweden does not actually rule out as well sending troops to Ukraine as a part of peacekeeping mission. The Foreign Minister of Sweden stated that once a just and lasting peace is established in Ukraine, Sweden must help to maintain it with obviously peacekeeping forces missions. We've also got some news today that the French Foreign Minister is now going to be calling an emergency meeting hosted by Macron. European leaders are going to be discussing Ukraine and challenges posed by Trump, according to the Paris official. So we've got news that Macron is going to be holding a huge NATO-style meeting with big players in Europe, United Kingdom, France, Germany, Poland, and maybe Italy and Sweden, to come to the table and discuss how to help Ukraine more efficiently. We've also got some news coming from the battlefield. Now, I don't actually really cover battlefield news, But we've got some pictures today of a North Korean 170mm M1989 Kosan North Korean self-propelled artillery gun. So there's an article recently in which it said that the Russian army is now forming 5 new heavy artillery brigades with apparently North Korean heavy armor. So we've gotten some pictures coming out to Ukraine showing apparently the Russian army using North Korean guns, so on the battlefield. And the next news we'll be discussing today is coming from Belarus. We've got news today that Kahafia, the commander-in-chief of the Libyan National Army, has just arrived in Minsk in Belarus on a visit. So we don't actually know why the Libyan army chief is meeting with Belarus. We'll obviously get more information about their meeting probably next video. The next news we've got coming today is coming from the Baltic states. So 6 days after cutting themselves off the Russian energy grid, the Baltic states, so that's Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, have now set a new electricity price record yesterday. So that's €269 per megawatt, up to 33% in a week. So if we remember last week, we talked about how the Baltic states completely left the Russian energy grid for electricity independence, and in return, we've seen energy prices in Latvia and Estonia and Lithuania increase by 333% in a week. So the Baltic states have cut themselves from the energy grid, and now they're paying 4 times what they have been paying in electricity bills. So very interesting news coming from the Baltic states. The next news we've gotten today is coming from Israel. That's a shipment of 1,800 heavy Mk-84 bombs, each weighing 1 ton, has arrived in Israel after nearly a year of delays due to the Biden administration. Following Israel's operation in the Gaza city of Rafah in May 2024, the bombs intended for the Air Force aircraft were released by the Trump administration and directed to Israel's port. So we've got news today that the Israeli army has just received the Mk-84 bombs, which is the largest conventional US bomb in the US armed forces. So, well, conventional armed forces. So, fresh deliveries of various types of bombs has just been delivered from the US and has arrived in Israel, including the biggest US conventional bomb it has. So, this was actually apparently personally handed over by Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State of the United States. And we've also got some news today coming from the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. So Benjamin Netanyahu stated that the gates of hell will open if Hamas doesn't release every hostage. He added he is working in full cooperation with Donald Trump. Benjamin Netanyahu stated that President Trump is the greatest friend of Israel in the history of the White House. And Benjamin Netanyahu has also stated that he will ensure that Trump's bold vision for Gaza will become a reality. So that's evacuating every single Palestinian from Gaza and relocating them to a different country, and rebuilding the Gaza Strip to kind of build it as a Singapore of the Mediterranean Sea. So, interesting news. We've also got some news today that the IDF has officially announced that their troops will withdraw from Lebanon, but will remain deployed in 5 strategic positions in southern Lebanon beyond tomorrow's ceasefire withdrawal deadline. So I've actually highlighted where the Israeli army will be holding its military forces in Lebanon. So one's here, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So the IDF will be officially withdrawing its troops from Lebanon, but will be holding key strategic positions like near the mountains here. So interesting news. We've also got news today that Israel has reportedly assassinated a very senior Hamas official in Lebanon, and we've got news of the identity. So Israel's army has just confirmed the elimination of Hamas commander Mohammed Shaheen in Lebanon. So Israel has done an assassination in Lebanon, kind of going against the ceasefire in Lebanon, but we won't talk about that. Now, we've got some news coming from Syria today that abandoned Syrian bases with military equipment have been found. So the new Syrian Authority, the former HDS rebel group, now the National Syrian Army, has found equipment including numerous T-90 tanks, T-90A tanks, and various T-72 and T-62 and T-55 tanks, as well as BMP-1s, have been found. So now all of this equipment has been handed over to the new Syrian government. So the Syrian government has found an abandoned military base where the former National Syrian Army under Bashar al-Assad left its equipment, and now has apparently all of this equipment has been handed over to the new Syrian Authority. And we've also just gotten some breaking news today that apparently Russia is close to a deal with the new Syrian government that would actually likely allow it to maintain a reduced military presence in Syria, keeping the actual Tartus naval base and the Latakia air base, Bloomberg reports. So the Tartus military base has been a Russian naval base, I believe, since the Soviet Union, and now we've gotten some news that Russia is likely to actually keep a reduced presence in the Tartus military port. So very interesting news. So Russia might be actually keeping its military presence in the Mediterranean Sea. And we've also gotten some news today coming from Egypt that Egyptian paratroopers are now actually doing military exercises around Egypt. So the Egyptian paratroopers brigades are recently conducting intense training exercises, leaping from aircrafts using powered gliders, and this is actually the exact tactic that Hamas did on Israel. If you remember when the October 7th attack happened, so when Hamas attacked Israel, they used the power gliders to kind of power drop into Israeli army and take hostages and, you know, return back to the Hamas, return to the Gaza Strip. So now the Egyptian armed forces are now practicing these gliders. So I'll keep you updated if there's any more news of that. We've also got news that the major Congolese city of Bukavu has just fallen to M23 forces. So 100% of the city has just fell to the M23 Rwandan-backed forces, and Burundi, the African country that is neighbouring Rwanda, has actually threatened to use a preemptive military action, a preemptive military strike against the M23 and Rwandan-backed forces if the M23 Rwandan-backed forces advance any further south towards its borders. So if you can see, the M23 Rwandan backed forces are very close now to the borders of Burundi. I think that's how you pronounce its name. Someone probably tell me I'm saying it wrong. But Burundi is now threatening a preemptive military action and strike against if the M23 forces go any further south towards its borders. So big news. We've also got news today that the M23 rebels have called for direct dialogue with the government of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The M23 forces stated that we reiterate our call for direct and sincere dialogue with the Democratic Republic of the Congo to address the root causes of the conflict and establish a lasting peace in our country. And we've also gotten very concerning news today coming from the Ugandan Democratic Republic of the Congo border. So as we discussed yesterday, the Ugandan chief of forces gave an ultimatum to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, which hasn't expired yet. But right now we've got news that Uganda is now deploying troops on the border with the Democratic Republic of the Congo as the conflict in eastern Congo continues. So we can see here, we can see heavy equipment now being brought to the borders between the two countries, and we've actually gotten pictures of Uganda's military being mobilized at the border with the DRC early today following the Army Chiefs of Staff's ultimatum. So Uganda actually plans to seize the Ituri Sea region. So if you don't know what the Ituri region is, I'll just really quickly put it here. So let's put it here. Yep. So Ugandan forces have actually gave an ultimatum to the Congolese army that if the Congolese army does not withdraw from the whole Ituri region here, the Uganda will start a special military operation to actually capture the major Congolese city of Burunania. So interesting and very concerning news. The next news we'll be discussing today is coming from China. So China's newest aircraft carrier, Fujian, will be commissioned into the People's Liberation Army Navy tomorrow. So China has produced yet again another aircraft carrier, which I believe this brings up the total count to 4. So China will have 4 aircraft carriers in the People's Liberation Navy. So a new Chinese aircraft carrier, Fujian, has left the dry docks today and starting sea trials. So if it passes all sea trials, it will be accepted to the Navy in China. So this number will bring up the total Chinese aircraft carriers to a strong 4. And the next news we've got on today is coming from the global trade dominance map. So if we can see here in the bottom left corner, we can see the year 2000 compared to the year 2024. So we can see the global trade dominance versus the US versus China. So we can see in the year 2000, the US actually dominated most of the global trade in the world, but now fast forward 24 years later, China is holding a huge amount of dominance in trade across the world. So China is now one of the main trade dominant nation in the world. So interesting news. We've also gotten some very interesting news coming from Tokyo today. So this is not breaking news, it's just something that I wanted to add in. So we can see this video here in the bottom left corner. We can see an AI control or robo animal rights violation. So this is causing a huge debate in Japan. So a chained up robotic dog was displayed in the streets of Tokyo, sparking curiosity and a debate on robotic AI rights. So very futuristic talks are happening right now. And the next news we'll be talking about today is coming from Australia. We've got news that Australia will impose a 2-year ban on foreign purchases of existing homes. The government has announced on Sunday morning. So the ban, which is the latest in an effort to boost housing supply in Australia, will come in effect on April the 1st, and it is expected to free up about 1,800 properties per year for local buyers in Australia. This was stated in a statement by the Jim Chambers, the Treasury of Australia. We've also got some news today coming from America next. We've got some news coming from America. So we've got news that there is now an official Doge Department of Defense account on X. So it was earlier reported that Elon Musk's Doge efficiency program would review the Pentagon's budget on its military and slash billions of dollars into useless, obviously, spending. So now that Elon Musk is now expanding his Doge efficiency company into the actual Defense Department of the United States. We've also got news today that millions of Americans, according to Doge's efficiency plan, millions of Americans listed at impossible ages in Social Security database. So Doge has uncovered shocking errors in the Social Security database, which over 25 million people in the United States are supposedly 100 plus years old, including 2 individuals marked as 240 and 360 years old. And Elon Musk has he joked about this, and he said maybe Twilight is real, and there is a lot of vampires collecting Social Security. So this was stated by Elon Musk, jokingly wondered. So vampires might exist, according to Elon Musk, because apparently there's 2 people in the United States who are 300 years old. We've also got news today that the Mexican Senate has just approved the US Special Forces to enter Mexico this week to take on Mexican cartels. So the US military will now be deployed in Mexico to fight Mexican drug cartels. So you can see here in your bottom left corner, we can see the first videos of US Special Forces that are getting ready to be deployed in Mexico to fight the cartels. We've also got news coming from Mexico that Mexico says that it will try and take Google to court over the changed of names of the Gulf of America. America. So if you can see here on Google, we can see it says the Gulf of Mexico and the Gulf of America. So Mexico is now bringing Google into court to try and get rid of the Gulf of America on Google Maps. And if you can clearly see my screen, we can clearly see it does have the Gulf of America, but it's also alongside with the Gulf of Mexico. The next news we've gotten today is coming from Canada, and the recent survey on if Canadians want to join America as the 51st state of the United States came in a surprising no. So if you can see here in the bottom left corner, the recent polls in Canada show that 82% of Canadians would vote no to becoming a 51st state of the United States, and 13% yes, and 5% do not know. So interesting news. And the last news come today is coming from a Bolivian bus crash that killed 31 people in an 800-meter ravine. So 81 people have been confirmed dead and 15 people injured after a bus plunged in Procio. I actually looked that up right now. I don't know if I pronounced that correct. Let's just search it up. Procio. So in the city here, 31 people have been confirmed dead after a Bolivian bus crashed, killed 31 people in an 800-meter ravine, and an average 1,200 traffic deaths happen in this region here yearly because of these deadly ravines and bus accidents. So there's been a huge bus accident in Bolivia that sadly caused the death of 31 people in the city of Potosia. I have no idea how to pronounce Spanish words or anything. And the last news come today is coming from some bonus news. So we've got some bonus news today that the creator of the Nutella chocolate spread brand has just died. So the renowned Italian chemist Francio, the creator of Nutella, has died on Valentine's Day at the age of 97. And the last news come today is coming from America again, where we've got news that a video was released by the Defense Department that shows that the US Coast Guard in San Diego unloading $275 million worth of cocaine seized in international waters in the Pacific Ocean. So we've got on news, according to this video here, that the US Coast Guards have managed to secure and get rid of $275 million worth of cocaine seized in international waters in the Pacific Ocean. And that's all the news I've gotten for you today. I'm Non-Scene News. I'll try and provide you news that medias around the world do not show you. I do these videos hopefully daily, so consider subscribing and liking. And if one more note, if you guys actually want to support me personally, because as you probably know, I don't get the best viewed numbers on YouTube. I don't earn practically any money from YouTube, and it would be a really big help if you could actually support me in the link in the description below, either becoming a member of the YouTube channel of Non-Scene News or donating to me personally using the PayPal link in the link of the description. But thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all later. Bye.